Hi, this is Tim Yoder with Fit Small Business. I've been a CPA for 25 years and today I want to show you how to do a bank reconciliation. So the first thing we need to do before beginning our bank reconciliation is to ensure that the prior period reconciliation is done. So a lot of people actually just get hung up on this very first step. So if you have an account that hasn't been reconciled for years, the first reconciliation is going to be very difficult. We'll talk about in a second why we need to have the account reconciled at the beginning of the period in order to be able to reconcile it at the end of the period. So if you have an account that's been unreconciled for a very long time, you may have to hire a bookkeeper to reconcile it for that very first time. Another way to do it is if at some point in time you can find a spot where your bank your check register in your accounting software, if that check register equals the bank balance. So if you can find that at a point in time, then those two amounts reconcile to each other because they're the same. There's no timing differences between them. So you could then start your bank reconciliation at that point in time. Okay, good. So what we need to do before we start our reconciliation, we need three documents. We need our bank statement, we need our check register, and we need our previous bank reconciliation statement. So here we have a sample that we're going to walk through for this video. So we have our bank statement for the month of June, we have our check register for the month of June, and then we have our bank reconciliation as of the end of May. So notice what this reconciliation does. This reconciles our bank balance of $10,000 and our check register balance of $9,000 at the beginning of the month. So we know that the difference between those two is this $1,000 outstanding check. So this is a check that was written on our account in May but did not clear the checking account in May. It did not clear the checking account until June. So that was a timing difference as of the beginning of the month. So we need to know that before we can reconcile this month. So if this $1,000 check clears in June, then it's going to disappear from our June reconciliation. However, if it doesn't clear in June, it has to remain on our reconciliation, and that's why you need that beginning reconciliation. Well, if we jump ahead a little bit, we can actually see that on June 8th, this check number 100 for $1,000, that actually does clear the bank. So this $1,000 will no longer be a reconciling item. It will have cleared both the books and the bank, and so it's going to drop off of our reconciliation for the end of June. Okay, so here's our three documents. Our goal today is to reconcile these two amounts at the end of the month, right? We have $99.70 shown on the bank statement. We have $11,800 shown on the check register. Those both might be perfectly correct numbers. We just need to reconcile the two to make sure they are correct, or perhaps there needs to be an adjustment made to one or the other. So let's get started. So again, our object here is to reconcile the $99.70 bank statement balance to our check register balance of $11,800. Okay, so the second step here after gathering our documents is to trace the deposits from the bank statement to the check register. So deposits should appear on both. Now what happens if we see a deposit in the the checking register, but it's not in the bank statement? Well, if it's at the very end of the month, that's probably fine, right? So you made a deposit in the bank, you entered it in your accounting books, but it didn't actually clear the bank. So that's called a deposit in transit, and that's perfectly fine. However, if we made a deposit in the middle of the month, we showed that in our check register, and it never cleared the bank, so it's not on the bank statement, well, that needs to be investigated, right? Either the bank messed up, perhaps they credited it to somebody else's account, or perhaps the deposit never actually happened, and so it's an error on the check register. So we need to investigate any deposits on the register not on the bank statement. We need to investigate them unless they happened at the very end of the month. What about deposits on the bank statement that aren't on the check register? Well, generally, banks make very few mistakes. So more than likely, if the bank shows a deposit that you don't have on your check register, it's because you forgot to record a deposit. However, you obviously need to investigate that. Make sure the deposit shown on the bank statement is correct. Figure out what that deposit was for, and then record that deposit in your check register. So deposit on the bank statement, not on your check register. Generally, that's not going to be a reconciling item. That's going to be a mistake on your check register. So you'll want to go in then and add it to your check register. However, again, obviously you want to investigate it, make sure it is in fact correct on the bank statement and that the register is the one that's incorrect. So let's trace our deposits in our example. So we have a June 15th deposit of $5,400. We can trace that directly to our check register of $5,400. So that's good. We have another deposit, $1,500. Trace that over here. We have a deposit $1,500. Perfect. Then we have a deposit June 29th of $700. Well, that is not showing up in our check register. So a deposit the bank is showing is not showing on our check register, so more than likely that's going to be a mistake on our check register. So obviously we want to investigate it, make sure the bank is in fact correct. If it is correct, then we need to record that $700 in our check register. Now, we continue tracing and we actually find there is a deposit in our check register of $5,220 that's not on the bank statement. Well, because it was made on the very last day of the month, it probably just hasn't cleared the bank yet, so it doesn't show up on our bank statement. So this looks to be correct, it's just not on the bank statement. So this is going to be a reconciling item. This is what we call a deposit in transit. It's shown properly on our register, it just hasn't cleared the bank yet, so it will be part of our reconciliation. Okay, so just as we said, that $700 deposit by Kristen needs to be added to our check register. We'll show that being done here in a minute. And the $5,220, that deposit on the last day of the month, that's going to be a reconciling item that will be shown on our bank reconciliation report. So now let's do the same with our withdrawals. So we need to trace them from the bank statement to the check register. Now, if we have a withdrawal that appears on the bank statement but not the check register, that's likely going to be a book error, right? Likely that's going to be an error on our check register. So just like deposits, we need to investigate it, make sure that withdrawal on the bank statement is correct. If it is, we need to add that withdrawal onto our check register. If we have a withdrawal on the check register that's not shown on the bank statement, that's actually quite common, and that is called a outstanding check, right? So we write a check, it immediately gets deducted from the check register, it may not clear the bank for several weeks. Okay, so there's no error there, that's simply a reconciling item to show the difference between our check register and our bank statement. So let's look at our example. So we have a $250 check that shows up both on our bank statement and our check register. Also a check for $350, $2,100, $3,800, and $120, right? So most of these checks here are shown on the bank statement and the check register. Okay, well, let's look at the bank statement more closely here. We have a $1,000 check that cleared the bank that's not shown on our check register. But remember, this $1,000 was shown on our previous bank reconciliation. So it was the difference between the beginning $10,000 and the beginning $9,000 on the check register. Now it's cleared, so there's nothing we need to do. It simply falls off of the reconciliation report now that it's cleared. So we will no longer have that $1,000 reconciling item. The $10 service charge on the bank statement, not in the register, that just needs to be added to our bank statement. That's not a reconciling item, that's a mistake. We need to add that to our check register. Okay, we go over here to our check register. We find that there are 4 checks here that have not cleared the bank. That's not necessarily a mistake, right? That's just simply checks that have been written that haven't cleared the bank yet. Those are called outstanding checks. We'll simply show those as part of our reconciliation report. Now, if you see outstanding checks that are outstanding for 2 or 3 months, that's a long time, right? It generally doesn't take people that long to cash a check. So I would do a little bit of investigating. Perhaps somebody lost the check and it needs to be reissued, or perhaps the check never actually went out the door, right? Maybe it was supposed to be voided and it never got voided in the system. So all sorts of errors could happen that makes a check appear that it should have been cashed, but it never was. So you'll need to do a little investigating. But I would give it a month or two before it really starts to be a red flag that something's wrong. So in our example here, we're going to have 4 outstanding checks. So these are not errors. These are just simply reconciling items to show on our report. And then we do have this bank service charge that did not get properly recorded in the check register. So that is an error. We need to add that into our register. Okay, so before we do our reconciliation report, we need to go in and make the error corrections we've talked about. We need to add those things to our check register that was not there originally. So there are 2 things. We need to make an adjustment for the payment of $700. So remember that there was a payment for $700 that showed on the bank statement that did not show on the register. So we're going to add this to the register. The other error correction is this bank service charge. We need to deduct it from the check register for $10. So this is just getting added to the bottom of that register we showed on the first slide. So our new check register balance is now $12,490. That's the amount that we now want to be able to reconcile the bank statement to. So now we finally get to prepare our reconciliation after all of that work. So the reconciliation report starts with the balance per the bank statement of $99.70. Now we add in all of those timing difference or reconciliation items that we found. So in step 2, we found that there was a deposit made for $5,220 made on the last day of the month. It was in the check register, not the bank statement. So that is a deposit in transit. We're going to increase our bank statement balance by $52.20, right? That's a deposit that hasn't yet cleared the bank. Then in step 3, we identified 4 checks that have been written and deducted from the check register but have not yet cleared the bank. We're going to list those 4 here as outstanding checks, total them up. That's $2,700. That should be decreasing our bank statement, but it's not yet. It will as they clear in future months. So we're going to deduct them from our reconciliation. So that brings us then to our balance per our check register of $12,490. And if I flip back a slide, we'll see that is exactly what we wanted to reconcile it to. So our bank reconciliation is now complete. So they can be a little bit difficult. The better you do your accounting during the month, the fewer mistakes there will be to correct, because a lot of times it's the correcting the mistakes that takes a lot of time in the bank reconciliation. If there aren't any mistakes, really you're just going through and identifying a few timing differences, and it won't be too difficult. Okay, so let's talk about how we can reconcile our bank account using QuickBooks Online. I've reviewed of a lot of different accounting software, and honestly, QuickBooks Online has the best bank reconciliation of any of the accounting software I've reviewed. Really, it follows a very easy set of steps that really mirrors exactly what we've already talked about how you would do it by hand. So let's walk through this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go to accounting. This is our accounting tab. And then it'll pop out and you go to reconcile an account, and then here you want to choose the checking account you want to register, you want to reconcile, and then you have to enter your ending balance, okay, and the ending date. Now here you want to make sure that the beginning balance shown here is the beginning balance on your bank statement. Okay, this comes from the prior time it was reconciled. Okay, so that should be equal to your bank statement, the beginning balance on your bank statement. And then if you have a service charge that hasn't already been entered in your check register, you can enter it here and it'll automatically add it to your check register. So this is very nice. This saves one very common error. It'll automatically add that to your check register, so we won't have to. Okay, after you click Reconcile, it's going to pull up this screen. So this screen is a list of all of the transactions that are in your check register that have not yet cleared the bank in the prior month. Okay, and so what we're going to go through here, and we're going to click on each item as we see it listed on the bank statement. So what's left over then are our reconciling items. Okay, so we've clicked everything that went through the bank statement. We have reconciling items left. We look up here, and it tells us that our cleared balance is $92.70, and that is off $700 from our so our cleared bank balance is off $700. Our reconciliation is off $700. Well, what we've done so far is traced from our check register to our bank statement. Well, now that we're off $700, we need to look a little closer at the bank statement. So is there something on that bank statement that's not on our check register? Well, remember, there's the $700 deposit that happened in the middle of the year. Now, in our prior example, we also had a service charge of $10, but here QuickBooks has already entered that in our register for us. So we have the $700 deposit that's an error in our register. So before we can get our reconciliation to balance in QuickBooks, we need to correct that error. So to record that $700 deposit, we're going to have to find out where it's from. Here we found that it's a payment received from Kristen Berman, and so we're going to go into the QuickBooks system. We are now out of the reconciliation part of the system, and we're actually just inputting a check collected on this invoice of $700. Once we do that, we can then go back into our reconciliation, find that $700 which is now shown in our check register here, click it as clearing the bank, and now our reconciliation is complete. So we can hit finish now, and it will allow us then to print a reconciliation report. Shows our bank balance, shows everything that cleared, comes down to our statement ending balance. So this is simply a summary of our bank statement. Shows the uncleared transactions of 2520, giving us our register balance. So that is our reconciliation report. There is this is a summary reconciliation report. There is a detailed reconciliation report that you can print in QuickBooks Online that will give you the details line by line for the transactions that are outstanding. So bank reconciliations are not easy, but they really are the foundation of a good bookkeeping system. So I really encourage you, if you get frustrated, keep at it. If the account's never been reconciled, hire a bookkeeper to help you reconcile it the first time. Actually, another good option, QuickBooks Live is a bookkeeping service, and one of the things they do for you is reconcile your bank accounts for you at the end of every month. So possibly, if it's just too frustrating, if you have better uses for your time, like managing your business, perhaps pay QuickBooks Live to reconcile the accounts for you. But however you do it, it is very important that you reconcile your bank statement every month. It really is the foundation of a good bookkeeping system. So some of the reasons it's so important: ensures the availability of cash. Obviously, you need to have an accurate number when you look at how much cash do I have available, right? You don't want to write bad checks, right? Nothing's going to make your vendors more upset than you bouncing a check. So you have to have accurate numbers when it comes to how much money do I have in my checking account. Also, it can catch fraud and manipulation. So you should have somebody other than the person in charge of cash. So if there's a person that can sign checks, that should not be the person reconciling the bank account. A separate person reconciles his bank account, gives them a very good opportunity to catch fraud. Detects errors and fees, and so we've talked a lot about how we can detect errors by comparing our check register to our bank statement. In addition, if you have fees that you didn't know about, you'll catch them when you reconcile the account. So you may have some NSF fees showing up on your bank statement you weren't aware of. That gives you the opportunity to record them in your account, or perhaps contact your bank if you disagree with the fees. And then obviously it explains the difference in the bank statements and the check register, and make sure that that is accurate, right? So we all know you can't look at your bank statement to see how much cash is available because we have all of these outstanding transactions. You need to be able to look at your cash register, your check register, and be confident that that number is correct, that is the amount of funds available. So that's it. That is the importance of reconciling an account. My name is Tim Yoder with Fit Small Business. I hope you found this useful. I will throw a link to QuickBooks Live if you're interested in QuickBooks Live doing the reconciliations for you. I'll also throw in a link for QuickBooks Online. They do have great reconciliation software within the program. You can get 30 days for free, or you can get 50% off for 3 months. So I'll throw that link in the description. Again, I hope this was very helpful, and I look forward to seeing you next time.